What's up, guys? Trey here, back by popular demand for another episode of Trey's Declassified Frisbee Survival Guide. This is part 2 of the defense series, and in this part, we're going to be going over an intro to zone defense. That's right, we played it today in our game, but I could definitely tell that a lot of people really had no idea what was going on, but we all jumped into it and did it really well. But I wanted to go over it today just so that we're all on the same page, and it'll make the rest of the season going forward a ton of fun. So zone defense is very different from man defense, obviously. Man defense, there's a variation of it in pretty much every sport that you guys have probably played, except for baseball or something. But zone defense is definitely a little more different, and there's a little bit of a learning curve. But with this video, everyone should hopefully be on the same page by the end of it. So, what do I mean when I say a zone defense? And what's the goal of a zone defense anyways? The goal of a zone defense is very similar to that of a man defense, where we're trying to force them to get it either on this sideline or this sideline, except in a zone defense, we're literally trying to trap them there. That's right, we're trying to keep them exactly where they are and stall them out by shifting our whole defense around to seal off any throw they could really possibly make. There's going to be 2 types of zone defenses we play going forward. There's a 2-man cup and a 3-man cup. Now, those probably don't mean anything to you right now, but they will in just a few minutes. So, where do we start? There's 3... Really, one split into 2 parts, but there's really 3 positions you could play in a zone defense. There's the cup, there's the mids or wall, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it mids throughout the rest of the video, but just know that some other people call it the wall. And there's the deep. The deep's the easiest. They play deep, and they don't let any deep pucks off. There'll be 1 of them, or sometimes there'll even be 2 of them, and that's the easiest position conceptually to play in a zone defense. You don't let anyone behind you. Do not let this guy here go deep behind you. If they get behind you, they can really mess you up by cutting in a way that you can't predict. If you don't have your eyes on them or your hips aren't facing them, then you're in trouble. So don't let anyone, the rule of a deep, do not let anyone behind you. Keep everyone in front of you at all times. If there's 2 of you playing, then it's a little different. But especially if you're a lone man back there like this guy is right now, no one gets behind you if you're the deep. Now, if you're a mid or a wall, then there'll either be 3 or 2, 3, or 4 of you, really. There can be one of those numbers there. And there's usually a middle, There's usually a middle, a left middle, and a right middle. If if there's 3 people. If there's 4 people in the mid, then there'll be a deep middle and a short middle, and then the same left mid and right mid. And if there's 2, then there'll be 2 kind of offset middles. They'll both kind of be patrolling very similar areas in the middle, and they'll have to stretch out to the sides, but usually you won't see 2. It'll be 3 or 4. And right now we'll do 4 right now. We'll do a deep middle and a short middle, because right now we're going to go over a 2-man cup. So this would be I'm getting ahead of myself. The cup is split into 2 parts. There's the mark, and there's the 10-foot man. So the cup is basically what chases the disc around the field at all times. It's a very tiring position. You have to be in shape to do it, but it's a very rewarding position to play. So the cup is split into 2 parts, like I said, the mark and the 10-foot man. The mark is what's actually doing the forcing. They are the person that is counting, they're in your face, and they are the ones who pick out the force for the play and hold it the whole time. So whoever this mark is, whenever we say it on the line, they are the ones who pick the force, communicate it to the team before we pull the disc down to them, and they keep that force. In this case, it's a home force. You can imagine it being an away force as well. They keep that the whole time because we're really trying to get it to either the home or the away side. The 10-foot man is called the 10-foot man very literally because he is, at all times, 10 feet away from the disc. If he is any closer, then it is a double team, and that would result in that 10-foot man having to back up a few steps, and the stall would resume 2 seconds less than when the call was made. So we want to avoid that, but we also want to be aware about that because other teams have been doing it to us, and we should be calling those double teams because they are very cheaty and they happen a lot. So this is what this is what a 2-man cup would look like. I don't know what I'm talking about 10 for. We would be forcing home in this case, and we wouldn't want to. The easiest throw here is to that guy there, and that's okay because he is on the home side, and we would really like that throw to go off right over to this guy here. Now he'll probably cheat up a little bit and get the disc up in this space, but as long as it's against the sideline, we don't really care because then we could trap him. But before I go into how we actually trap, I want to show you guys what a 3-man cup would look like. In a 3-man cup, we'll usually play with 3 mids and 1 deep. We have some pretty tall players, some pretty athletic players, so we'll usually only have 1 deep. If we have 2 deeps, then it'll probably look something like this. We usually wouldn't do 2 deeps with a 3-man cup, so this is more for a 2-man cup if we decide to do it that way. But the 2 deeps would kind of play, really one would be further back than the other. This would be the short deep here, this would be the deep, and the deep lets no one behind him, and the short deep picks up the second deepest man, because sometimes they'll send 1 guy deep, and they'll have 1 guy linger in the space that the deep is leaving to go trace the man who ran behind him. And so that short deep, that would be his job, is to cut that off so that there's no hammers or little deep hucks that come off to that guy. But usually those throws are pretty difficult, and so we'll only play with 1 deep, and especially in a 3-man cup, we'll almost always play with just 1 deep. So the 3-man cup, if we're forcing home, would look very similar. You'd have a guy there, maybe even a little less than 90 degrees to the guy's right, if not exactly 90 degrees. And then you'd have basically 2 10-feet man making their own little wall. And that's why I don't like to call the mids the wall, because it can get kind of confusing who you're talking about, whether it be the 2 10-feet men or the actual midfielders back here. Midfield defenders, I should say. So this is the actual cup part of the cup, and they are responsible for they make it very difficult. They have to stick together, not let no throws can get off in the gaps between a 3-man cup. If they get off in the gaps between a 3-man cup, we're super exposed and we're in trouble. So all these guys here have to play really tight together and not let anything off into the away space. If we're forcing home, it'd be the inverse. If we were forcing away, they wouldn't let anything to the home side. So we're really only letting this guy be a viable option for this guy with the disc. And he'll probably run up into this space all happy, catch the disc near the sideline, not knowing that we are about to strike with a trap. Or maybe he will know that we're going to do that, and he'll have to figure that out when he gets there. So what would a trap look like? Well, let's imagine for a second that this throw actually did get off to this guy here. I came prepared, and I made that situation right here. So this is the guy with the disc now. You can see the disc is that little blue highlight. And he is now on that home side just as we planned. So what do we do now? Now is when we trap. But how do we do it? Well, the cup becomes extremely important. Everyone becomes extremely important in the trap, and everyone has to be communicating and talking to each other at all times, and that make sure that we're all on the same page. So that mark becomes extremely important. They are always active in this guy's face. They're literally playing almost in a 2-man cup. They are either like 30 to 45 degrees behind this guy here. The mark's main priority is to not let any throws get off to the dump behind him. And if they do get off to the dump behind him, then he has to absolutely bust it over into that space so that this throw doesn't happen. If this throw here, that's called a swing, if the disc is swung over to that other handler on the right side, we are in major trouble. So this guy's main responsibility is not let that throw off, which is really hard because you don't want to make that throw very easy. So his main priority really is not letting the throw get off from this guy to this guy once it gets swung back there. But ideally, if he can stop the disc from even getting there in the first place, then he should definitely prioritize that. Now the 10-foot man, if we're in a 2-man cup right now, he, instead of being straight in front of this guy, is going to shift to be about 45 degrees in front of him, or 45 degrees up to the right from him. Again, keeping a 10-foot gap there. But he is in that space to make any sort of dinky throw that way really hard. He'll make any dinky throw up over to that guy really hard. He's really just in that space, and he also makes this throw over there really hard. So his job is just to get in the way, right? So what do our mids do? Because we have at least 4 mids right now waiting in the wings, waiting to help this trap. Because there's still some good options that he could throw. There's always a hammer over the top. There's always something that this guy can do, right? So how do we defend it? Well, the left mid, who was playing here before, is going to push in, and he's going to almost become like an auxiliary 10-foot man, except he's going to be a little further back, and he is making any throw right up this field difficult. He's right in this guy's way, making a deep huck or a little dishy. If this guy bolts in there, really that would be the actual 10-foot man's issue. But he can communicate that. So he is very important. The left mid, if we're forcing home, or if it was away, the right mid is extremely important, and they're stopping all of that right there. The short mid would kind of play he would play more in this space here. And he would make sure that no scuba throws or little tiny hammers get off either over his head to that guy or over this guy, over the 10-foot man's head to that guy, because those are cheap little throws. We don't want them getting those. Those are too easy, and they would really break us down quickly. Arguably the most important guy or girl in all of this is that far side mid, because usually they're chilling all the way over here, and that might seem like they're kind of useless, but they're actually incredibly crucial, because they will push in and bait this throw to this man here. When I say bait, I mean close enough to easily make the D, but far enough away where the thrower thinks they can make that throw. Because this throw here is extremely difficult. It'll have to be a hammer or a really scoopy, really bladey throw. And this side middle here will eat that up all day. That is their main priority, is to not let anything get off this way. And if this throw gets off here, and this guy cannot make it to that space fast enough, well, now we have a backup option, and this guy, if they're playing good enough defense, can bolt right over here if they try to make that throw and get a big D, and we'll all be super hype. It'll be awesome. Now, what does the deep mid and the deep do? Well, the deep will keep playing deep. They don't really adjust their play, and the deep mid would kind of play more in that space, in case they try to do a scoopy little thing over the left mid here. For example, if this guy drops over to this space behind and where that guy isn't blocking, that deep mid can push over and intercept it. The space we're leaving open is this space here, because a throw from here all the way over there would have to be a hammer or a terrible throw that ideally the deep can eat up. So we're literally letting them throw it to that part of the field, and we are okay with that. So that's how a 2-man cup trap would work. And a 3-man cup trap is basically exactly what you're looking at. It looks very similar, except this is the cup. So that left mid is really the 3rd man from the cup, and they're playing straight up there. That means that he's probably a lot closer than in the 2-man cup, and honestly that left mid in the 2-man cup can probably push up to about 10 feet out too, because this deep mid is patrolling behind him. So then this would be the 3-man cup. This would be that right mid in the 3-man cup. This would be that mid in the 3-man cup. And then this becomes the left mid in that 3-man cup. And that deep is still the deep. So it looks very similar both ways. It just depends on how we actually shift it around. If we were playing a 2-man cup with 3 mids and 2 deeps, so that would be these guys would be in the cup, these would be the mids, and then these would be the deeps. So one of those deeps would push way far in, while the other one kind of pushes over a little bit and lets that space open. So all the traps look relatively the same, relatively similar, I should say, and they all operate in relatively the same way. But they work very well almost every time that we effectively trap them on that sideline. They will turn over the disc. So that is the intro to zone defense. There's a lot of other zone defenses we could play. Frisbee gets very creative with it, but these two are the most common and honestly the most effective ones that will work and that we will work with the most throughout this season. Thank you guys for watching. I guess if I'm going to do this one was a little longer than I was hoping, but zone defense is very different from a lot of sports, so it is kind of disorienting. So I tried to take my time with it. I tried to really explain everything. I hope it helped. I guess I'm going to be doing this relatively consistently now. So hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.